Good evening, my name is Srini and I'm a President of Digital Experience Service Line with ITC Infotech. And with me here, I have the pleasure of the company of Mr. Kumar Mishra, who is the Vice President of Technology with Reynolds Consumer Products, our distinguished client advisor. And we have Sandeep Kumar, who is the Head of Business Consulting for ITC Infotech. And we are going to discuss a topic which is probably the most relevant in the business world today, which is technology and business partnership in the emerging digital landscape. And with that, I would turn it over to Mr. Kumar to start the topic off with his perspective on where he sees this partnership today and where it should evolve to realize the promise of the potential that digital offers to businesses worldwide.
Thanks, Srini. I think from my point of view, traditionally what we have done is businesses, we pretty much try to reach out to the customer and have the experience with the customers in terms of what offering we have had. With technology coming into the place, I think it has given a very much the ability to take the companies or the offerings a little bit more flexible, more with the speed, and give a better experience to the customers. And what that means is that you can use the technology to really deal with the customers or understand the customers that what actually they need. And I think digital transformation plays a huge role in that arena of taking that offering, taking that experience, taking that what you can offer to your consumers, to their customers.
In this context, what role do you think business has to play in evolving and staying pace with evolving technology landscape and also evolving consumer preferences? And what role does a technology team play in that evolution?
I think that's a very interesting question that you put up. The way I really look at this is that when you start looking at what digital allows you to do, it really allows you to crunch the distance between the customers and the suppliers by a complete reimagination of the way the processes used to be, right? So there are new possibilities that you really bring in. There's a lot of disintermediation that you can actually achieve through digital technology and so on. So what it allows you to essentially do is to basically hone in on the customer side of the house and really start looking at, what is that micro personalization agenda that they want to drive. Of course, the very important thing there, of course, is to try and thread it back in terms of how do you really put in a fulfillment engine behind it, which is really the classical customer supplier integration that you really want to achieve. So to the question that you had in terms of what is the business view on this, I think when you start looking at it, business and technology really have to come together to really construct models of this nature. And that is the reason why when you start looking at digital technology adoption, it really works best when there's a business and then there's an opportunity or a possibility that technology brings, and they both come together to really create a new model, a new process design, a new way of servicing your customers, and so on.
Got it. Thank you so much. And I would like to pose a question from a slightly different perspective. We all know that as much as what we are seeing in the business world in terms of the rapid evolution that is happening because of the changes in the landscape in terms of consumer behavior, technology landscape changing at an exponential pace, and the competitive landscape evolving at a tremendous pace, a lot of it has parallels in the evolution that we have seen in the natural world. You either evolve or you become irrelevant in this case. And we have also seen that those that win this war are the ones that are most adaptable, not the strongest, fastest, biggest, smallest, but the ones that are most adaptable. So in terms of adaptability for a business, what are some of the capabilities that you think are key in order for a business of any size to be adaptable to change the rapid change that we see in the digital landscape today?
And I think absolutely agree that the environment is changing so much. We went through the pandemic just now. I think pandemic we learned that if we don't adopt and evolve and learn from that, I think we will become irrelevant. So from a technology point of view, what businesses should be doing or thinking about and what we are thinking of at the time that take advantage of the technology in terms of learning. I think it is very important for the businesses to start thinking about their skills what they don't have, because their traditional way of thinking, of working is no more relevant. Means your consumers, your customers are actually asking you to be more prepared and more thoughtful of how you will serve them. So I think one of the things adaptability comes is learning, developing their skills relevant to whatever you are doing. If you are in a finance, you start learning about how do you do better finance transactions. If you are in sales, you think of how do you do the sales transactions, not just looking down, but looking up. That basically means thinking and adopting the technology and embrace the technology. I think it is no more that you go to technology or the IT of your company and talk about, hey, what can you do for me? In fact, become the part of that co-innovation with your IT. In fact, I personally believe that IT and business internally should start co-innovating, that how they can take technology advantages, whether it is understanding about your products, understanding about your customers, understanding about your suppliers in a much better way.
Awesome. So I will pose this question slightly differently to you. Learning, as Kumar called out, is key. So in your perspective, what should businesses do better to continuously learn about how their consumer preferences are changing? What are some of the ways in which they can become better at learning more about their consumers and being more adaptive to that changing consumer?
If you really look at it, I think there are probably three things which are very important in my view, right? One is the entire aspect of how do you listen to your consumers and how do you basically use technologies today which are available to really sense what consumers are talking about you, your brand, your products, and your competitor products as well, right? So that really gives you a certain sense that you can bring back into shaping your brand strategy, product strategy, your campaigns, your communication, and so on. The second thing that becomes very important is how are you dealing with feedback, right? Because when you look at, let's say, consumer businesses in particular, right? Consumer businesses typically have always used customer feedback as a mechanism for trying to address customer issues. But can you also use that to basically drive decisions around how your product strategy needs to be reshaped, right? That becomes very important. And I think the third part of this entire thing is really in terms of loyalty. So in today's world, I think everybody has so many choices. You can keep switching brands and so on and so forth. So how do you really drive the concept of loyalty in this kind of very dynamic kind of environment? And that can only be done if you basically are always ahead of the curve in terms of satisfying customer needs, which are not only express needs, but latent needs that you can tap into and keep improvising on that. So I think these are really the three core pillars that I think are very, very important in terms of how business should be looking at driving a micro-personalization, hyper-personalization kind of model.
Got it. Knowing the customer, and my favorite analogy is customers don't hire us to dig holes. They hire us to, build a capability to grow a forest, right? Whereas we see only the holes part. Now, I believe this question probably is keeping a lot of technology leaders up at night. Question is, with the rapid change in the technology landscape itself, technology evolving at such a pace that, the viability of, the ramp up time and then being effective at it before it becomes irrelevant, becoming smaller and smaller. What are some of the ways in which technology organizations can stay abreast of tech trends and ride this rapid curve, the hockey stick curve, if I may say, on technology evolution, and retain continuity, because you cannot go out and hire people every time a tech stack changes. At the same time, you do need infusion of perspectives for new tech stacks. How does a tech organization strike that balance from a learning and upskilling and reskilling standpoint?
Very good question. In fact, that's the question we have been trying to understand and learn, that how do we as a technology or the IT leaders can actually have a speed of innovation. And what we believe that there's many things available now. I think there is a very new term. In fact, it's not a very new term. It's called cloud. I think we have heard the cloud which we see in the sky, but actually there is a cloud that basically means having the functionality and the features available to you versus you building it. And I think that is one area we can take advantage of. And also, it is very difficult to build the talent all the time internally. So it is important that you have strategic partners. You bring the strategic partners, not just you tell them what to do, but how they can help you. There are some skills, there are some knowledges, they can bring the trends in the market, what is happening, how to speak to the market. Means that you have to take advantage of the technology, which is basically software as a service. And think of the partner which can actually bridge this gap and take you faster.
That's very insightful. Thank you. Now, I will pose that slightly differently. Kumar mentioned innovation. Now, whenever people think innovation, they think an innovation lab, right? People with thick glasses, coats, right? But this bolt-on approach to innovation seems to be not working generally. And it also, I believe, is no longer tied to just technology per se. What is your perspective on what businesses can do, if I may use the cliche, to think outside the box when it comes to innovation? And what are some perspectives that you can add to that challenge for businesses out there?
See, I think, from a business perspective, I think one thing which I find is very, very important is really an appreciation of where technology is and the capability that it gives you. So what technology that you had, let's say 20 years back and what you have today are very different, right? Now, technology has evolved at a certain pace, and it basically is something that business needs to have a very clear appreciation on. Once they have that appreciation, the ability to really innovate on their requirements around that goes up tremendously. Take the case of location-based sensing as a case in point, right? So it was something which was very difficult to achieve maybe around 12 years back, 10 years back, right? Today it's pretty much, par for the course, right? And you really need to be able to exploit that in the way you service your customers, if you're a retailer or if you're a CPG company. So it's really about, how do you understand what technology can do for you, and then put a layer on top in terms of what is the business possibility that is getting created around that. And to me, that is the bolt-on innovation, right, that we are talking about. Because, you may already have a certain application, but you can always enrich it by bringing in another aspect to it, right, and so on. So I think there are two kinds of innovation really to be in my book. One is really trying to completely go down the breakthrough innovation kind of models, where you're actually reimagining a process, reimagining a model and doing that. And second is the bolt-on innovation, where you actually are just bringing in certain things on top of what you already have, but it gives you the capability to do some things that you could not do before, right? And I think today technology is so perverse, and to Kumar's point, there are SaaS-based services, there are so many different things that are there out there, right, which you can actually just plug in, right? So to me, that really is the bolt-on innovation piece that I would really think through.
If I can add to this, I think innovation has to be thought through. There is a consumer, your consumer is changing. We had people with a different kind of expectations, and with Alpha and Z and all those kind of people coming in, they have a different expectation. And I think businesses have to start innovating. How do they serve to their demand? It is no more, in the past we went to the retailers, we walked to the stores, and we expected to look at the products and buy the products. Now the day has come with Uber and other kind of things, where we are expecting that I will have my demand met on demand. I think I like that the demand met on demand means basically that how can I innovate for my customers or consumers in a different way where they are actually looking at meeting their needs.
So in a lot of ways, you kind of brought in the Uber part of it, and some of the challenges I believe businesses in any industry is facing right now is the democratization of expectations, because we all consume from the same ecosystems, the Googles of the world, the Netflix of the world, Amazons of the world, where there is a certain degree of bar that has been set by these organizations which are digital natives. And now the same set of expectations, it's carried over into your neighborhood kirana store or to the vendors that you deal with and the service providers that you deal with. What do you think brands can do? In this case, businesses and brands, I'm using them interchangeably. What do you think businesses can do to leverage their technology capabilities in partnership with business to kind of bridge that expectation gap?
What Uber kind of experience has taught us is that I need to be able to provide our customers the services or the products when they need it. They don't need to. In fact, we have come to a time where a lot of people don't want to own things. And businesses have to start thinking about that, what can I do where I provide the products or the services when they need it, and maybe they don't need to own it. And I think that's kind of, I can't speak to each industry differently, but say, for example, for our kind of industry, we might have to think that are there digital services we can provide to them, which the content they can own. So maybe a recipe management content, maybe some other industry, they can create some kind of digital content and people can buy that content and own it. So I think that is what they have to think about it.
Excellent. Sandeep, on a different take on that topic, when Kumar brought up a very interesting point about people not owning things and consuming on demand, what are some of the possibilities that a digital-first approach to business open up in terms of asset-light models to business? And how can CPG companies take advantage of that?
Yeah, so I'll extend the argument. It need not be only CPG companies, it can be any company for that matter. But the way I see this is, see from a technology point of view, right? Today, if you look at many of these SaaS products which are available, they actually allow you a plug and play, which in my mind is utilitarian, right? It is really about CRM as a service, customer feedback as a service, and so on and so forth, right? Which is great, because that now takes away the focus of the organization from something which needs to be done, but probably doesn't really drive competitive advantage for them, right? Allows them to really pivot onto maybe the core, right? Which is really, perhaps in the case of a CPG company, how do you manage your trade, marketing and distribution function? How do you manage your new product launch processes, right? Which are very important and very key to you. So I think one thing that has happened because of all of this is that now you have the opportunity to really consume many of these services, I'll call these as business services, on tap through the SaaS-based model. And that allows you to really do two things. One, very quickly get your business model in place. Now you don't have those legacy app development programs that will take 18 months, 12 months, right? And so on and so forth. You can just do a very quick, plug and play. And two, it allows you to really focus your attention on more of the critical, more where the core of the business really needs to be focused on.
So let me pivot a little bit. And you have been our distinguished client advisor quite a while, and you have worked with ITC Infotech for a while too. It would be great to hear from you how ITC Infotech has been able to add value to your business and your ecosystem.
Oh, I think it's a pleasure, really. When we started the engagement with ITC, I think we had a little different experience at that point of time. I think as the industry was evolving. Today, what I can tell you that ITC means we don't use the word vendor. We believe in a strategic partnership, and ITC has come up to the table and providing the strategic partnership, that whether it is in the AMS space, whether it is a factory space of our IT factory space. So I believe that we are pretty happy with what ITC brings. They are actually trying to work with us and co-innovate in the area of application support and do things. So very happy with that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. And Sandeep, I know Kumar has been a very distinguished client of ours. If you might add a few words here as to how Kumar has helped shape our own thought process and direction, that'll be very helpful.
I think Kumar has been, pretty much guiding and advising us, through the entire journey. And I think, the association that Kumar has had is actually beyond maybe 10 odd years across multiple companies. And I think at every stage, I think what we have basically always got is very sane, practical inputs in terms of what needs to be done so that it adds value to the business. And how do I really use ITC Infotech and my partners like ITC Infotech to really drive the kind of impact that business is expecting from me. So I would actually put it in those words. I think it's been very pragmatic and very, very clearly an advisory hand, right, in terms of making sure that we actually perform to the goals and the objectives that Kumar has. In the automotive world, they call this as vendor development programs, right? So in some sense, Kumar has been working with us to really help us coach, mentor, and then basically help us on this journey, and which I'm sure that he would also be doing with other partners of this as well.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I had enjoyed it, moderating it. And looking forward to the next opportunity where we can host you, Kumar, and quiz you and get your perspectives on the topics of relevance at that point in time. Thank you very much. Much appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumar.